The Vatican's unimaginable wealth. If done correctly, religion can be a very profitable business, and the Vatican is a prime example of this. Let's dig in. Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about the Vatican's unimaginable wealth. At only 0.27 square kilometers, it is the world's tiniest sovereign nation, but it is home to the world's richest religion. With over 1.3 billion members worldwide, the Catholic Church has been plagued by scandal after scandal for decades. It is the world's second largest religion, and its entire empire of vast unimaginable wealth is based on your donations. However, the Catholic Church is clever in that if people knew how wealthy they are, they would stop donating to them, which is why they keep all of their true finances close to their chest, careful not to let the public see the Church's true financial state, which is why the Catholic Church is winding down in 2021, claiming that they're low on reserves, running a deficit, and in desperate need of your donations. When they're worth at least $30 billion in Australia alone, that's more than Starbucks is worth globally, and thanks to some simple math, you can get a rough estimate of how much money the Catholic Church has. There are approximately 5.5 million churches in Australia, which means the Catholic Church can extract an average of $5,450 per user. There are 372 million Catholics in Europe, the United States, Canada, and Australia combined, equating to $5,454 per Catholic. With 372 million Catholics, the Catholic Church is worth a little more over than $2 trillion. And that's just from the major Western countries, implying that the Catholic Church is on par with well-known brands like Apple, Microsoft, the Saudi Arabian oil company, Amazon, and Alphabet are able to get a conservative return of 3%. For context, the stock market typically returns 10% of $2 trillion, which gives them $60 billion every year tax-free in theory. But what do they tell the public? That in 2018, they only profited a meager $20 million, nowhere near even $1 billion. And at the heart of all of this is the Vatican Bank. Today, it's probably more accurate to think of the Vatican as a hybrid of a Federal Reserve, an offshore bank, and a hedge fund, rather than just being the seat of Catholicism. The Vatican is the ultimate corporation that has withstood the test of time like none other. And this is how it's done. While the Vatican now has billions of dollars, it wasn't always this way. At one point in history, the Church was on the verge of going bankrupt because of its massive debts. In fact, this is a common way for people to remain impoverished. They have a lot of high-interest debt, such as credit cards, and can only afford to pay off the interest every month, trapping them in a vicious cycle. The Vatican was a secular empire centuries before the Catholic Church became a capitalist holding company, which meant that its existence was not as closely linked to Catholicism as it is today. Popes were the kings of the Vatican and the supreme leader of the Roman Catholic Church in Italy. They believed that God had chosen them to rule over all other world leaders. The Vatican controlled over 15,000 square miles of land in Italy called the Papal States during the time of the Pope Kings, vastly larger than the tiny area the Vatican City occupies today. All this land was important because building palaces and running one of Europe's most luxurious courts was expensive. And like the corrupt government of today, what better way to continue your life of luxury than by taxing the people you rule over? People's taxes in the 6th and 7th centuries went to supporting the lavish lifestyles of the Pope Kings and their sidekicks, known as cardinals. Over time, the taxes simply weren't enough to support the lavish lifestyles of the Pope Kings and their sidekicks. The guys in charge had come to expect it, but there was a problem. The Pope was already taxing the Papal States, charging fees to trade and do business, and selling the majority of the religion's agricultural products, but it wasn't enough. He needed a new way to make money quickly. The Vatican leadership came up with a brilliant plan around the 6th century. They were already selling most of the Papal States' natural resources to make money, but there were only so many grapes or vegetables to export. But what if the Pope and his cardinals had something extremely valuable to sell that would never run out, allowing them to make infinite sums of money? The plan was simple. Since the Pope was God's earthly representative and his church had thousands of members, what if he could tell them to reduce the amount of punishment they would receive for their sins after all these years of penance? And the fear of purgatory had made people fearful of God's wrath, so paying a little extra money to avoid burning in hell for as long as possible was a very good deal. As a result, the church began selling indulgences, or small tickets promising that God would not punish them too severely for whatever they had done wrong. Smaller sins were less expensive to obtain indulgences for, while larger sins were obviously more costly. Even though it wasn't the original plan, indulgences became a cash cow, unlike anything the Vatican had ever seen. Sure, hundreds of church officials were abusing their right to sell indulgences before, power, but who was the Pope to complain when millions poured into the church treasury? After all, the church's prosperity was God's will. The sale of indulgences continued for over 1,000 years, during which time the church and the Pope grew increasingly wealthy. But things began to deteriorate after the French Revolution in 1789. The Pope called taxing the Vatican the work of the devil, but the endless streams of money the Pope had been enjoying were quickly drying up, and something had to be done. When European states demanded more money from the Vatican, taxes on the Papal States continued to rise, and as in any 19th century state with corrupt leaders, the people revolted in 1848, crowding into the Vatican City. The people of the Papal States were tired of being treated badly, so they rioted in 1848 in the Vatican City and murdered the papal prime minister. The Vatican was 2 years behind on bills, taxes were almost non-existent, and even the sale of indulgences had nosedived, leaving the Pope in charge with no cash reserves. They made an attempt to appeal to a broad audience, increasing freedom of expression and releasing over 1,000 political detainees. But it was too little, too late. Desperate to keep the Vatican and the Church afloat, the Pope had to make a difficult decision. He would seek assistance from the Rothschilds. Yes, the Rothschilds are a Jewish family business, and the Pope had to swallow a lot of pride to enter their debts. But his lifestyle and wealth were more important to him than his pride, so the Rothschilds left the Vatican 50 million francs or $10 million to cover the Vatican's budget for a year. However, even making deals with heathens couldn't save the Vatican from financial ruin in 1870, when the Italians invaded Rome and ended the Vatican's control of the Papal States. The Vatican's control of the Papal States was reduced from 15,000 square miles to 0.17, and the thousands of subjects the Vatican could tax were reduced to around 700 people who lived at the courts. Around 60 Italian families remained loyal to the Pope and were known as the Black Nobles after the massive papal empire had fallen and have become what we know as the Vatican City forever. The Vatican was at a fork in the road, which led to the first ever Catholic investments in secular businesses. The Pope began investing in Roman real estate, and fortunately, he caught the beginning of the real estate boom, and his investments were a big hit for a while. Most Black nobles simply followed the Church's lead and invested in the same properties as the Pope, and they became wealthy as well. Today, the Church has over 1.2 billion followers, and according to my estimates at the start of the video, has around $2 trillion in wealth. Their number one call for donations is yet again that they're on the verge of bankruptcy, despite the fact that one Catholic official in New York City alone is the city's largest landowner, proving once again that when you have the right combination of guilt, fear, and the promise of eternal life, religion can be one of the most powerful forces in the world. And that's all for today, guys. Enlighten us with your thoughts, share them with us in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe to our channel and ring the bell icon for more amazing videos. And thank you for watching.